Mr. Speaker, we just heard shocking testimony at the Human Resources Committee from the CEO of the Central Okanagan Food Bank. He says projections are another 100% increase in food bank demand in the next 3 to 4 months due to inflation. He expressed how donors and volunteers are now clients. Liberal inflationary spending and carbon tax are adding to the cost of food. After 8 years, this NDP Liberal government is just not worth the cost. Will the Prime Minister take the tax off of farmers, families, and First Nations? Finally.
Here.
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Mr. Speaker, we will continue to invest in strengthening social security programs like Old Age Security, Canada Pension Plan, and support for families like the Canada Child Benefit and $10 a day national childcare. Programs which the Conservatives continue to vote against, totally lacking empathy and understanding for the struggle that Canadian families are facing. On this side of the House, we'll continue to do the hard work to ensure that we're there to support Canadian families.
The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that answer won't satisfy all the Canadians lining up in a food bank for the first time in their lives, or the food banks that are losing donors and volunteers due to Liberal inflation. We heard from not-for-profits how they see the rising price of gas as a barrier to volunteering, and how senior volunteers are being forced back to work to afford basic necessities due to inflation. After 8 years, this NDP Liberal government is just not worth the cost. Will the Prime Minister take the carbon tax off of farmers, families, and First Nations? Finally.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's important that we focus on affordability for families, and it's also important that we look at facts when it comes to the carbon price that we've put in place. It's also important to remind Conservative members that they ran on a carbon price, and carbon pricing is the most efficient and the cheapest way to lower our emissions, Mr. Speaker. But with respect to food prices, particularly those facing lower income families, Mr. Speaker, today an article lists here that 94% of households with incomes below $50,000 receive far more rebates exceeding their carbon tax costs in 2023. Mr. Speaker, lower income folks are enjoying more rebates than carbon costs because our carbon pricing